All right, just this one section today, since we took the quiz. Page 283, commas to set off certain sentence elements, okay? I'm going to read this part and then I'll probably do some stuff on the board. Look at this with me at the bottom, please. Commas often set off a word or a group of words from the rest of the sentence. The number of commas needed depends on where the word or word group is, at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end, okay? And then it goes on, but I'm going to show you something here. Let's see.
Did we do this on LMS?
No, you should have done up through 12.7 and 12.8 on LMS. If you went ahead to not 12.9 and 12.10, no, you didn't know. I know you didn't do this. You all did 12.1 through 12.4, and then we did 12.
We didn't do 12.7, we did 12.8.
Right, but then we
That's where we
stopped,
stopped,
right?
'cause
So that's where we
yesterday
stopped.
we
If
did-
you've done ahead, then good for you, but we stopped with 12.8. We're looking at the info now for, oh, no, I'm right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, bottom of 283 and then top of 284 is where we are.
Oh.
Um, okay, I'm trying to think of another one. I wanted to give another example here. This one right here, okay, is an example of one that we would have at the beginning if we have a dependent adverbial clause like this one at the beginning of a sentence, okay? Whether it's necessary to meaning or not, it gets a comma after it. It just does, okay? To separate that from your main clause. Because we were warm, comma, we did not want to go outside. However, if I were to put this at the end of the sentence, we did not want to go outside because we were warm, this is what we consider an essential or restrictive dependent clause. And at the end of the sentence, it does not get a comma because it's necessary to meaning. If this were to happen to be in the middle of a sentence, because it's necessary, if we had this, we did not want to go outside because we were warm, and then blah, 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 okay? Assuming there's not a need for a comma there for the last element, this would receive no commas either. The only way, if it's a dependent clause, the only way it gets a comma is if it's other than at the beginning, is if it's necessary. Does that make sense? To meaning. This is, no, let me reword that. If it's necessary, the only way it gets a comma is if it's at the beginning, okay? Now, let me do one that's not necessary and show you something. Now, this is not an adverb clause, this is an adjective dependent clause. What's my adjective dependent clause here? Yes, Caitlin?
We're using with butter.
Good. I'll tell y'all right now, I'm a big sweet lover, but I swear to goodness, if it's real butter and it's a good roll, I would prefer this over chocolate. Okay?
Wow.
Huh?
I said, wow.
Yeah, and I love chocolate. We've had that discussion, okay?
Oh.
But these, if they're homemade rolls, and yeah, it doesn't get much better than that, folks, in my book, okay?
Bread is amazing. I love bread.
Yes, good bread is amazing. I can honestly, loaf, like sliced white bread, I could do without it all day long. But if it's good homemade rolls or biscuits,
Texas burn casserole.
yeah. Okay, this is a dependent clause, but it's an adjective clause, right? Is this necessary to the sentence?
No.
No. And because it's not, And because it's in the middle, it not only gets a comma here, but it gets a comma here. And even if you don't hear the second comma or the first comma, whichever it may be, when you say it out loud, because it's in the middle, it needs both. Okay? If this happened to be at the beginning, which would be weird, this particular one would be weird. Generally, if you have one at the beginning, it's adverbial. Okay? And it's always going to get a comma. If this happened to be at the end, it would get one comma before it. Okay? It wouldn't work in this sentence for this to be at the end because it would be too far away from what it describes. But if you have a dependent clause at the end, and it is necessary, it gets a comma. I mean, it's not necessary, excuse me, it's unnecessary, it gets a comma. Otherwise, it does not. Okay? All right, so we are here, yes. Interjections, okay? We actually talked about introductory adverb clauses the other day, I think. Interjections, all right? I'm having a hard time thinking of an interjection in the middle. It's easy to think of one at the end or at the beginning for me. Please, yes, oh, okay? More often than not, these will be at the beginning if it's an interjection, okay? Gets a comma after it every time unless it gets an exclamation point, okay? None of them in this section will, but sometimes they do. But if it doesn't get this because it's strong feeling, usually, more often than not, it doesn't get this, it gets these, okay? If it's at the beginning. If it happened to be in the middle, just like with that, whether you hear it or not, you have a comma before and after, okay? This would be somewhat unusual. Less likely than this, but far more likely than this, would be at the end. One goes before, okay? Nouns of direct address. This is, and sometimes we abbreviate it that way, okay? Which usually that means not applicable, excuse me, okay? If you put that on, like you're filling out an application for something and they ask you a question, you know, they'll say, are you married or single? And you put single, and then the next one says, if you're married, blah, blah, and then ask another question, and you would just put this. Rather than not put anything, and it could be questionable whether you even read the question or not, okay? But here, this means noun of direct address, okay? This is an easy one. Anytime you're talking to somebody directly and you say their name, okay? Or da-da-da-da-da. Again, before and after, whether you hear it or not. Or at the end. Sentence, period at the end, or whatever mark needs to go there, comma before. Parenthetical expressions. This is anything that is absolutely not necessary. Okay, there are a couple ways you can do this. We're going to talk about the other one later. The other one is that, parentheses, okay? That's where the term parenthetical expression comes from, parentheses, okay? But another more common way is to set, if it's in the middle, to set it off with commas. If it's at the beginning, put a comma after it, and then the rest of your sentence, or if it happens to be at the end, there would of course only be one comma because, no, lies, yes. And there's your parenthetical expression, not necessary. Your parenthetical expression, period, okay? And then finally, and look at an example of that. I like the one in the middle there because often people do not put one of these because they don't hear it if they say it to themselves. Mr. Stevens, comma, as you may already know, comma, will be leaving us next year. And then phrases that show contrast, okay? Unless you're Yoda, you don't use these at the beginning of the sentence, okay? okay? So that's not even a question. These are used either at the end or at the middle. The girls, and if it's used in the middle, just like with all the others, you gotta use both commas whether you hear them or not. Not the boys will go, okay?
Could you just like take, like, if you have that, if you don't have the commas yet, can you just take out not the boys and see if it's happening?
Yes, and if it does, then you know it's parenthetical and you're either gonna have to use the parentheses or the commas. Okay, good. And then another one. If you move it here, okay? Okay. Let me see if they give you another example that I'd like to go over with you. Yes, look at the last example there before 12:9. Because this one uses the word never, and I was trying to think of one in my head right off, and I couldn't think of one right off, so I did it that way. Always see that your appearance is clean and orderly, comma, never sloppy or unkempt. Okay, so never can also be used to show contrast like this, just like the not. All right, 12:9. We are going to insert commas if we need them, a comma or a pair of commas, and a set of commas, and then if it's already correct, we're gonna put correct. There are 2 corrects on this section. Let's do a couple. Together, my parents visited London, not Paris, last year. Yes, I ran it together so you could, I didn't just show them to you automatically.
Would
Yes.
it be between London and not?
Between London and not, and whether you hear it or not, if it's in the middle when you don't need it, you gotta put a comma. Where's the other comma? Help her, Kate.
Paris and last.
Yes. Not Paris is the one that's showing contrast that we do not need. It's in the middle, it's gotta have a comma on either side, it's a set, okay? Generally speaking, they had a nice vacation. Isaac.
General speaking, comma.
Yep. Number 3, did they have any problems, Peter? Emma?
Correct.
Correct. Number 4, well, they were amazed at the cost of everything. Kaylee?
But come after well.
Come after well, and finally together, number 5, they were always with the group, never alone. Hold on. Sam may redeem herself, or the 2 of you that have not given me an answer yet may speak up. One of you. I will wait. Thank you. Put your hands down. If somebody gets it wrong, then I will let one of you guys answer, okay? You haven't answered yet today, are you sure? All right, go ahead. You did when I was going over, but yeah, good. Okay, go ahead.
5
Yep,
after group.
after group, never alone, right? That's your contrast statement, just like not the girls. All right, you should find one more correct on 6 through 10, and there's only one correct on 12:10. Do the rest of this one and all of the other.
How many left? Did you say sorry?
One left on this one and one on all of the other ones.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and let me get this started.